Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Chaos to Clarity podcast. My name is Maggie, and today's conversation is for the woman who knows that she's meant for more, but is tired of feeling like she has to force her way there. Now, if you've ever thought, I'm doing all the right things, so why does this feel so freaking hard? Then I think this episode is going to hit home for you. Today, I'm joined with Lauren Pearlingi, an intuitive human design business guide, a trauma-informed healer, and the creator of the 90-second method. And Lauren does something that I don't think enough people are talking about in the online business space. She brings in the nervous system side of business, and that's not just strategy. It's not just mindset. It's what's actually happening in your body when you're trying to show up, to sell, and to grow. And what I love about her work is that it doesn't just sound good, it actually works. So it helps you regulate, it helps you simplify, and it helps you learn to trust yourself again in your business and in your life. So Lauren, I'm so excited to have you here. Welcome to the Chaos to Clarity podcast.
I'm so happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
I would love if you could take us back to a season where things felt most chaotic for you. How did you navigate that from chaos to clarity?
That's a really good question. I feel like that's like really every 3 months for me. Just being honest. So let's just kind of go back to probably, let's just say August of 2025. And there was a situation that I had to grow through where my signature program was completely being sold by somebody else. And in that moment, I took the opportunity to obviously use my 90-second method, which was really eye-opening because it helped me pause and kind of bring myself back into regulation. And then also, I'm a true believer, and I know this is very triggering for people, but I believe that we're all mirrors to each other. And in that pause of when I realized what was happening, I could allow the chaos to kind of take over, right? And I realized in that pause that I could ask myself a very important question of like, what did I do to attract this? And I'm not saying that it didn't feel like poor me, victim, all that stuff, but I'm a big believer of like, we need the victim mentality, but we also can kind of shift out of a question that we ask ourselves: what opportunity is this showing me? What lesson is this showing me? And in all of that, I was able to simultaneously at the same time interrupt my own self-sabotage, the patterns that kept taking over in my business, my personal life, my business, like my, with, business partners. And because at the time this was a business partner, that I realized that like in the midst of real life that I could have spiraled and I didn't. So I don't know if that answered your question, but that was like the chaos piece of it. And in that moment of like, I say my method is 90 seconds, but I want to say in about like 60 seconds, I realized that like I had clarity on exactly what was happening. And I'm not saying that the first time you use my method, that's the way it's going to be for you. So like, don't try it and be like, oh, it's not working. Like it doesn't work. You have to like, this was like a year and a half of me practicing on my own life and then other people practicing as well to realize that like, these are real humans practicing it. But yeah, in the midst of like complete chaos, like I'm talking lawyers, legal, it was complete chaos, and smear campaigns and all this stuff that I kind of could bring myself back into my own body and realize that the pattern is no longer taking over.
Yeah, that I don't love that situation, but I love that awareness, right? And I think that is something that, at least, for me, as you've introduced me to your 90-second method, from all the stuff that I've also learned, leading up to connecting with you, learning this from you, is really that awareness piece. So do you feel like there was a moment when you realized, like, I can't keep doing this because the chaos keeps happening? Do you feel like that happened for you?
Yeah, especially because before I even created this method, there was a lot of chaos in my life, and I loved chaos. I loved drama. I loved chaos. I loved all of it. And then I realized, through my own experiences, the last 6 years of my own really taking my healing journey seriously, and really looking at myself as a mirror. Why am I attracting this? Then I could kind of see the patterns that lived within me. And I'm not saying that, I know this is triggering when I say this, but I'm not saying that everybody is a direct reflection of you. However, they're direct reflections of the patterns that still are inside of you. And I'm not saying that, I've said this on a podcast before, and people were in my inbox about, well, I'm not a cheater. And I'm like, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is there's something inside of you that you don't trust yourself. And cheating could happen in business. I mean, that's what I'm not saying that I cheated on my husband, but it happened in my business. And then it realized I was cheating myself, of my boundaries, why I was not sticking. There's other things that kind of show up, and the awareness of how chaotic my life still was, I'm like, oh, okay. The clarity came when I was actually willing and allowing myself.
Mm-hmm. That's so interesting. And I think, we all don't realize that we're kind of cheating ourselves out of business, really. And at the end of the day, it's kind of like we're cheating ourselves out of money by trying to almost skip steps, right? So as a manifesting generator, I recognize that right away. It's oh, I want to get from A to Z, and I'm going to skip these 25 steps in between because I can kind of see the path. And I'm just going to go for it and just hope for the best. It's so interesting to be able to now that I've been in my human design experiment and just kind of understanding what it is to be to see those patterns show up. So I'm curious for you, was that a deeper understanding of human design for you?
Yeah. So especially when it came through my conditioning, I think especially I could look at, the different gates. I did a lot of exploring with Gene Keys the last year and a half, probably 2 years, I would say. And I realized that every gate, I should say, in human design or Gene Key, there's 3 different frequencies, right? And it's I kept operating at the lowest frequency, and then realizing my strength was actually the highest frequency. And then it's the same thing with gates in human design. It's the same thing. And I realized once I actually understood that, and in my human design, for anybody that doesn't know, I'm a 6-2 emotional projector. So and my whole chart is about understanding really complex systems and making them very stupid easy, really easy. And people always oh, you look at this very complex system, which people look at human design and get intimidated and don't ever want to look at it because they're it's just too complicated. And I'm well, I feel I can simplify it, and I'm not calling people dumb, but dumb it down for people that can understand it. Because the average person doesn't even, they'll look at it and they don't understand it. Just like astrology, it's a lot, so it's I have an ability to do that. So anyway, so I did that for myself first. I always do it for myself first. And then I realized that the things that I was attracting, or any, I was my magnetism, I always believe that we all have a magnet inside of us. And if you're attracting this, you also can attract the opposite. So if you don't really like what you're attracting, you can also fix the magnetic, the magnet inside of you. And you can also attract the opposite of what you want. Now that also comes down to belief systems. What are you telling yourself? What's going on in your mind? You cannot act like you're this screaming affirmations at yourself in the mirror and think it's going to work. It just doesn't work. You don't believe it, and your body isn't going to hold it. And which is why I kind of the last couple years, I thought to myself, like, why isn't anybody talking about nervous system, right? So I started talking about it, and then I'm like, oh, everybody's talking about it. But in the way that it's not really, I mean, yeah, sure, your nervous system. It's more like your energetic body of like, how much are you holding? Somebody that wants, a certain amount of money, if your body can't hold that money, you're never going to attract that money because you're still in lack. Like that's just like a very simple, example of that. And I was there because I'm like, I want this. But then when it came time to like what I can hold, it wasn't that frequency. So it's like then going back to healing my nervous system and like what's safe, what feels safe in my body. What am I telling myself in the mirror, which is why like mirror work is so important. And especially people that, have been heartbroken and have been through a lot of heartache, and I hear them say, I'm never going to be with anybody ever again. I'm going to be single. Like that's sad to me because we are mirrors. So like you are not able, then you're not willing to look at yourself in a relationship or like heal that relationship with yourself because not everybody is the same, so.
Yeah. Yeah. So you kind of answered my next question, but I would love, which is okay, right? Like, so I'd love to know, because you gave us a couple of different ways that people can like kind of regulate, but what is like, if people are just starting or they're just starting to realize like, hey, I need to actually stop just shouting affirmations at myself because deep down, I don't really believe, like, I don't actually believe that $5,000 months are possible, right? Like I might be saying it, but I don't like deep down believe it. What's one small way or something that people can do to start regulating before they react in life or business?
So I think the simplest way is to get curious. So to get really curious about your thoughts, like write them down, sit with yourself. I always say, just, promise yourself like maybe 1 to 2 minutes a day to be able to sit with yourself in the morning, however it works for you. Meditate. Like I know a lot of people don't like to meditate, but like meditation for me is like walking, being really, meditation is just being consciously aware of your thoughts. That's it. Like just sit and actually listen to what you tell yourself because it's usually the same 7 stories every single day and it just like repeats. It'll use like break it up or whatever. You change those stories and it could be driving, whatever. If just like you're focusing on one thing and your focus is that thought, I think if you're somebody that's just starting, I think starting there and then just doing it for one day, not thinking about the past, not thinking about the future, just the present moment, because they're like, really, that's all that matters. We only really have the present moment. Because if you think about it, I was on a podcast last week on my own podcast recording, and he said to me, do you know what yesterday is? And like, I was like, well, yeah, it's just a thought of yesterday, like my thoughts and memories of yesterday. And he goes, yeah, yesterday's not real. So why do people live there? Which is a very valid question. Why do we live there? Same thing with like, why are we living in the future? It's just a projected, this is what it could look like. I mean, sure, you need that for goals and all that stuff. But it's, when you're in this place of like regulation, it's really important to stay in the moment. And that is the whole purpose of me making this 90-second method, because it forces you to stay in the moment.
Mm-hmm. I love that. And, I think that's so important that as a business owner, as an entrepreneur who, we are constantly worried about goals and we're worried about like, what is tomorrow going to bring? And then we're also simultaneously worried about like, shit, I didn't post that thing that I thought I was going to yesterday, or like I didn't do the things that I wanted to do. So I'm curious for you, what, like when you started to kind of hone in on this energy, for me as a Manigen, it's a very projector energy that you bring, right? Obviously, because you are a projector, but I love that kind of reflection that you offer in that. So for you, what shifted when you started really leading as a projector instead of like trying to keep up with that like sacral energy?
It's really interesting. That's a good question. So it's kind of like I had I come to like Lauren moment with myself, and it's like, what are you doing? Like, you want this, you want that. Nothing's working. You're getting frustrated. You're getting, angry, bitter, whatever you want to say, like whatever you want to call it. And I really had to be honest with myself about how I was actually showing up. And I was trying to show up like a generator. Like, yes, if you looked at my chart, you would like, are you really a projector? Yes, I really am a projector, but I have a lot of defined centers. So I do have a lot of energy, except for my root and my sacral. Like, how convenient, so for me, it's more of like, how can I actually understand myself more? I mean, I've been using human design and gene keys and astrology like my whole life, but especially human design and gene keys, probably like Gene Keys the last 3, and then human design lasts like 8 now. So it's like I truly understand how to actually operate within my own energy, but like I wasn't implementing it. It's a huge thing I see in projectors. I know that you see this all the time too, Maggie, of like the action piece, and then the excuses that come along with it of like, oh, I don't have a lot of energy, oh this. It's like, okay, they're all excuses, and I know that every projector does this, but it's like you're putting yourself in a box, and I was doing the same thing. So I think, to answer your question, it was literally what I actually thought leadership was and how I was showing up as a leader. And it wasn't in alignment with what I actually believed a leader was. So I personally wasn't being a leader. So then I was attracting opportunities to understand how I can shift that. And I think that is when I realized that for me, leadership means that you're going first and then you're leading other people. It's not, I'm doing this, I'm above you, blah, blah. It's not that toxic leadership that you see in corporate America. It's more of like, I'm right next to you and I'm going to do the same stuff, even though I don't want to do it. Maybe, I don't want to go to the gym, but I'm going to still show up and have discipline and do all the things, and then not tell you what to do when I'm not even doing it. And I think that I see that a lot because like I am reading energy. I'm not judging people. I mean, maybe I am a little bit, but yeah, now that ego story came up, and I'm saying that, not that I'm a judgmental person, but I kept hearing, and I'm like really raw and vulnerable, and I don't, real about it. So I realized that people kept saying, Lauren, you're such a non-judgmental person. And I'm thinking to myself, but am I really? Because I secretly judge people. And I think all of us do. And it was like a time for me to look at my own ego story of like, why am I judging people? Because like, that's a reflection of me. So, understanding and like learning all of that, I realized that it's because I was not showing up the way that I was suggesting other people should show up. And that's kind of where I realized I need to do better here. So,
yeah. And I think that's really important to like recognize that. And I think that is where like leadership starts to evolve, right? Is when you realize like, oh, I think leadership is ABC, but I'm doing XYZ, and I'm always kind of judging ABC, but then to really stop and go, oh, wow, I'm actually judging that, wondering why, like deep down, like, well, why can't I do that? Right. I know for me, that's definitely been, some of the questions that I've asked myself at different points in, in the 20 years I've been an entrepreneur, when I start kind of like, I guess it would be like, it's not lust. What's the word? Covet, right? Like when I'm coveting after people, like being like, I just want to be like that person. But then it's like, but why am I thinking that? Like, am I already that? Am I like, how do I want to show up in my own way? And then I think that gets into, the real difference between hustle and alignment, right? And I think, and I'm curious what you think. I'm curious what you think the difference between hustle and alignment is, because I feel like leadership kind of it doesn't necessarily fall in there, but if you're out there constantly hustling, you're probably not leading from a place that you want to lead. However, if you are really kind of taking care of yourself, you're aligned, you're noticing like, oh, here's this thought, here's that thought. I don't want to be those two thoughts. I'm not thinking that. So like we're shifting out of that. Mm-hmm. That is alignment. And I feel like that is where true leadership comes in. I'm curious what you think.
So when I hear like hustle versus like leadership, I really believe like the heart versus like ego. And I think that, and I'm not saying this in a bad way, but like, I feel like ego is that hustle, like do. It's me, 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 me. What can I do for me? It's not a collective thing. It's not a heart-centered thing. It's not, and I'm not saying that people that like are hustle culture-ish, like all of us have gone through that, like we all have to experience that. But I think for like alignment is more of like those heart-centered decisions. Like what are you making that is going to help the collective? What, obviously help yourself, but then help the collective too, like yourself first. Right. But then it's like at some point you're a thought leader or whatever you call yourself. You're there because of the wisdom or whatever to share. Like, how are you going to move forward? And I often see a lot of like a couple clients too, that come from corporate America and their like opinion and thoughts, and I got to do it this way, is kind of like how I can shift them out of, no, this is out of alignment with you. It's not going to work. And it's mainly getting through those ego stories or that ego, like of this is, if you do it this way, you're going to die. You can't do it that way. You have to always do it this way. You have to burn yourself out. You constantly have to go, go, go. And that's just like, that doesn't work anymore. It doesn't work for anybody. And I think so when you see that, what do you desire? What do you want versus what your mind telling you is the difference that I see.
Yeah. So I have an undefined heart center. You have a defined heart center. And do you feel like there's, I guess, in your reality, right? Like, right. Do you feel like there's a lot of pressure from your heart center? Because with an undefined heart center, there are times where I do feel that like ego pressure where it's like, oh, you got to be like this. You got to do that. Like, don't like do the thing that everybody's telling you to do. And I like, that's my perceived version of clarity until I'm like, no, this actually isn't what I want to be doing. Do you feel that same pressure with a defined heart center?
Yeah, I think I feel like it's like that fight between your ego and heart constantly. And I think it's just constant. Not constant, but it's kind of like that chatterbox that's kind of like, you shouldn't do that. And it's like, it's okay. Like and I'm also being very aware that I'm very consciously aware of like what my ego is talking, how it's talking, but it's not as loud. It's not like, it's interesting because it used to be really loud. Don't do that. It was just constantly going and going and going and going and like would not shut up about it. But it usually happens like that when, people are like, oh, you just need more mindfulness. And I'm like, no, that fucking doesn't work. Like it works until it doesn't work, until you have to actually look at the stories that you keep telling yourself and then have control over that. So yeah, I think that, and that they're just, triggers and stuff. So it's like, I think it's just like a daily thing for me anyway. It's a daily thing that it's like, oh, what's my ego telling me today? Like what's not true, or what do I need to stop avoiding, or what's the reality of it, or like looking at my reality, like, okay, so I can see my reality. Like if I don't like something, okay, so what did I do to choose this, because unfortunately people don't think that we choose, but we all choose our reality. And it's like, whatever you perceive it as is whatever. It could look completely different. You could be rich on an island. You can also have that reality, but sitting at your desk, like it's whatever it's whatever. I know people think that's like, oh, that's Delulu Lauren, but like, it's really not.
Yeah. It's funny you say that because I like when you say like, oh, I'm just being so delulu, but actually it's being that delusional that creates the things that we want, right? So like when I was watching a TikTok or something not all that long ago, and it was talking about like being delulu is the solulu, right? Is this delusion is the solution. And I'm like, and it literally just hit different that day,
Yeah.
for whatever reason. But it was like, it got me to think like, okay, what what are my most delusional thoughts about my current, like if I could change things in my current reality, what is the most delusional thing that I could do, that I would move towards? And I think that's so interesting because, so for me, I have a lot of openness in my chart where you're, like kind of the opposite. You have a lot of definition. So for me, to have that and then to sit in that level of delusion is like, oh, yes. Oh my gosh, this is so, just crazy out there. And like, what if, and that literally makes me so inspired and like will put me right to work, right? That is the thing that if I'm feeling stuck in my work and like I don't necessarily want to, like, I've taken the last 3 weeks off of social media because we've all been sick, right? So
Yeah.
like now I'm like, okay, I got to get back on the train, but there's a part of me that's like, oh, but I don't want to, right?
Yeah.
But then to sit in that level of delusion of like, what if, how, can you imagine how many people are just waiting for me to show up online and walk through the door and be like, I'm back, right? And like that level of delusion is what then puts me into action. So if someone is listening to this and they're like, okay, I need support, I need to do something, I need, whatever that is, like, what are one or two things that they can do to start, like to step into this new clarity?
I want to say, like, first say to what you said about delusion. I want to say, like, anything I've ever manifested in my entire life, it's never been from my ego. Like, it's always been from what I wanted, what I seen, what I've always before I had it kind of thing. And it's like, that's actually how manifestation works. So it's like, you have to manifest from delusion, like, because your ego is going to tell you that you're not getting that, you're not going to have that, and then your heart's going to be like, but you can have that, you can definitely have that. So it's kind of like, what are you going to listen to? Like, that's a question that you can ask yourself, like, what are you going to listen to? Because anybody that's ever been successful ever is going to tell you that all of their things that they got is from their quote unquote like delusion or their dream or their miracles or whatever. It doesn't just like show up. It's from them putting it out there and like consciously building towards that one thing. Like, you have to have some type of vision to build towards. You can't just be like the some part of the some part of society is like, oh, I'm just gonna put it out there and then like do nothing. Well, that's actually going to get you nowhere. It's like, I'm going to put it out there and I'm going to make sure I like build towards whatever vision that you have, and that's kind of like how it happens. And then the universe does the rest. But to kind of answer your question back to what you said, I think specifically is people really need to figure out what they want. And it's not like from a place of like, I want $1 million. I want this. I want that. Like, what are you really passionate about? And what can you do to shift yourself or the collective on to make a difference? And, start from there. Like, there's people who have been asking me lately, Lauren, I need you to help me find my purpose. Like, I don't know how to help you find your purpose. You do, and I can help you, but you know what you're passionate about, and what you can bring change to the world, and you like helping others. And I think it's just starting at there and like asking yourself and then being quiet about it. Like, don't tell everybody, don't tell everybody your ideas. Like, if you want to do something, build something, create something, do it, but don't tell everybody until, you can put it out there, because somebody else is going to take your idea. So
Right.
yeah, I would just start specifically and then, map out how it's going to look for you. And then you don't really need to figure out the how, because the universe takes care of it.
Yeah, that's so interesting. So I really feel like, people, they almost don't put enough trust in the universe, right? Because we're so
Yeah.
hardwired to hustle, right? And I feel like, the last 25 years, and maybe not the last 25 years, but for sure from the early 2000s through probably 2020, right? That, like, if I look back at that time, I'm like, oh my God, that was like the hustle era. And if I never have to hear like every day I'm hustling again, I like it will just not be too soon that I don't ever want to hear that again. However, I will say that I do feel like we came out of that hustle era, and now a lot of people are shifting into this, like, well, I'm just going to manifest it, I'm going to think it, and then it's going to happen. And that's not right. Like, that's not how like, you have to show up and still do the work,
Right.
in order for everything to work out, which I feel like is also a very weird, okay, everybody says I can think it and then it'll happen, but like there's a disconnect. So, like when people come to you and they say, like, I need help figuring out my passion, what are things that you, aside from like getting quiet and like actually listening to your body and listening to the things you say, the things you think, the things that, like, noting the things you love to do, what are other things that people can do to like really kind of pull that, like, that golden thread out? How do you help them pull that thread out?
Specifically, like nervous system regulation. So trusting themselves. So like for me, human design, astrology, and gene keys have helped me trust myself. Like there has been a point, I guess it's not anymore. There was a point probably like 6 months ago that like there was like I would be able to like ask a question and then immediately receive from like clear senses audio answer. Like I can hear an answer. I'm like, oh, okay, like I'll do that. And usually it's like my main spirit guide or like my spirit team, whoever was telling me. Obviously nobody bad. It was a good spirit. It wasn't like telling me to go do something crazy. But I mean, sometimes I think like, are you sure I should do that? Not craziness. But so, and then it stopped. It was like, I would ask a question and then it was like radio silence. And I remember being on a podcast recording and her saying this specific thing. And then she goes, it's the moment that you need to trust yourself more. And I was like, oh, okay. So like there was like a lesson or opportunity for me to trust myself more. And when I'm asking myself a question, I just know, like I'm an emotional authority. So I will let the emotional wave use my 90-second method, use the, and then I'll let the clarity come, and it always comes. It really does. It always comes. So people listening to this, if you're an emotional authority and you're like, it never comes, it does. However, you have to get very still and quiet, and you have to be at a place that you can trust yourself. And I think that is really important, because a lot of us, I feel like, ask for guidance outside of ourselves, and we have all the answers inside ourselves. It's just you have to get to that place of self-trust. And I think doing that for understanding yourself more, or asking more questions, or like I said in the beginning, like getting curious of like asking yourself, why do you feel this way? Why are you thinking this way? Why are you doing that? Like all that stuff, or get curious about your childhood, or, that type of thing. I think that is a really good place to start, because once you can come from a place of a regulated state, like you don't get triggered every time you see somebody that like reminds you of your past, or you can walk into a room that you don't like anybody there, but that's their energy is not affecting you. Like I honestly get to a place of like people that you never wanted to be. Not that I'm saying go around people that you don't want to be around, but you're also allowing them to take your energy when you need to be like just walk into a room, or show up as the amazing person you are. I think that's really empowering, because your light is going to dim whatever else you're coming in contact with. So yeah, I think it's specifically like self-trust. And now, like, that radio silence, as I call it, if I don't hear anything, okay, perfect, nobody wants to answer me, all right, fine, I'll just do what I think is right. And then usually they'll intervene. Usually the universe will intervene if I did make the wrong decision, and maybe I need to go steer on this path. Like, something will happen, a plan will change, or there will be a delay at some point, or maybe I'll just have to relearn that lesson again, like something like that. And I think that it's just trusting that once you make a decision, you wholeheartedly are not second guessing yourself.
Mm-hmm.
It's really important.
Yeah, I think that's so, as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, I think that trust in yourself is really, it's really like the feedback that you're getting from the universe, right? Like, where you have to trust that it's going to work out. It might not work out in the way you thought it would, right? I mean, like, I've been an entrepreneur for 20 years, and the amount of things that have worked out the exact way I thought they would have been teeny tiny, right? But everything has like worked out in the end, right? Like, in a way that's like, wow, I didn't expect it to go that way, but here we are, and look at this. And I know in the beginning, I definitely was like, oh my God, nothing's working. Like, I'm never going to get it out of corporate. I'm always going to be stuck here. I'm going to be like, I hate this, blah, blah, blah. And then one day, like, I literally just decided I'm going to bet on myself, and I quit my job. And like, I haven't looked back from that. Last year, I actually ran into a few people that I used to work with in corporate, and they said to me, "Oh, how's that little business that you left work for?" And I'm like, "Well, that little business is still going strong. I've made more than 7 figures with that business, with that little business. I've also created 2 other businesses on top of that business. So I would say it's going pretty well that I bet on myself." And they were both just like taken aback that I hadn't quit, or that I had like made it. And I was like, dang, like, after that night, thinking about that interaction, going, wow, like 10 years ago, I would have let that just wreck me. Right. And now to be like, oh yeah, it's actually going great, like, to have that reaction to it, just based on everything we've talked about today, I think that is such a marker for me to be like, I have come so far. Like, my mindset, my boundaries, my like thoughts about myself of like, yeah, that little business is actually doing really great, and it's not so little anymore.
Yeah.
Like, to know that and to have that, like, to be that proud of that business is like, that's what I want people to also have for their business.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that, because I think I've had very similar interactions, maybe like with my like family, think I'm crazy leaving like my very successful on paper, like, job as an ultrasound tech, to like, I never really knew I guess I always had this really profound trust in the universe. Like, I always believed everything happens for a reason, even if I don't know the reason. Maybe I just kind of like faked it till I made it a little bit, and, kind of just trusted. But like, at the end of the month, every single month, what I worried at like at the beginning of the month never mattered at the end of the month, because it was like more of those experiences that is like, okay, so you worried about this and that. And then like, just getting to understand if it's like past life regression stuff, or like, why do I have this belief at this? Like, why can't I just kind of flow through life to be like, how can I trust myself more? And it was like that question I kept asking, like, how can I trust myself more to be like, not worry about this, not worry about that? Because like, at the end of the day, we really don't have control. we have control of how we use our emotions, how we do with our actions, but like we don't have control over anything else. And as much as people think they do, we don't. And
Right.
don't think that you do, because sure, you could do whatever you want. However, the universe will show you exactly how much control you do not have. So just control yourself and your emotions and be kind to people, even if they're mean to you. Just be kind anyway. We're all made of love.
Yeah. I love that. That's so awesome.
Yeah.
So we're actually collaborating for a masterclass, and everyone who's listening knows how much I, number one, love to talk, but number two, love to, host masterclasses. And collaborating on a masterclass is just something that has been so fun to do with Lauren. So we actually did a masterclass in February, and now in April, we'll be hosting another one. And it's all about why you're doing the quote unquote right things, but you might not be making the money that you want.
I'm so super.
So this masterclass is really talking about some of the hidden patterns that are blocking your income. So a lot of the things we talked about today are also things that we'll be talking about during this masterclass for you to contemplate and to work through all of that stuff. We're also going to talk a little bit about generational money patterns, and we're going to touch on energetic resistance to visibility. I don't want to show up online. I don't want to do that. I don't want to DM people. I don't want to have conversations, but I want to sell, right? So you have to work through that energetic resistance. Things like you're posting, but nothing is happening, or you're talking, but you're not selling, or you're creating offers instead of nurturing the leads, right? All things that I see in my clients. Where can people connect with you? How can they find you?
So I'll make sure you have my link tree, but if you just go on any social media platform, YouTube, TikTok, send me a DM, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, you can find me over there too. Just Lauren Pearlingi, or I think over on Facebook and Instagram, it might be Lauren Pearlingi. Or just go to the Mermaid Light and you can send me a message there. And even if it's just like you have a question for me, or you maybe I do have a free 30-minute call that we can chat to see if working with me would be something that would benefit you. Or it's just like, hey, I have this question. I'm happy to answer anything. You can always just send me a DM wherever you are.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being on today. I'm so excited for everybody to listen to this. And like always, my DMs are wide open. You're talking to me. So go ahead and send me a message. Let me know what resonated here on the podcast today. Let me know if you have any questions. Make sure you like, share, subscribe. I don't know, all the things that all the YouTube people tell you to do. Do all of those things. Make sure you come and follow me on social media, and I will see you in the next episode.